My Judy was driving my truck at the time. This bitch started beeping her own. Bah, bah, bah. I'm like, "Are you crazy? That's the Tyler house." She was like, "I don't care. What are they doing? They're holding up traffic." I said, "Bitch, they not."
Hello, black hole. See this brother winning, man. Hey, look, what is your win, big? What is your win, big?
Well, hello there, love bugs. Hello there, bellas. If you have not already done so, please remember to like, share to Facebook, subscribe, and visit uptopbeauty.com. Today's looky would be our honeybee wigs. Baby, these things are in pre-order and they're going to be less than what you see over there on the Instagram. Also, our 640 bar ring and our fingertip ring. And if you are not already a part of our book club, please hit the Patreon link below and or the join button here on the YouTube. And for a small monthly fee of $5, you babies, yes you, can be privy to all the shenanigans before the YouTube gets it, if the YouTube gets it. Now, let's continue talking about, what's the name of this book, y'all? Deliver Us from Temptation, the tragic and shocking story of the Temptations and Motown. The story takes place in the early 80s. Mary is giving an impromptu party in the small, hot New York apartment of one of Mary's most devoted fans and disciples. Use a bitch. But maybe that's how some of them stars be ended up sleeping on their fans' couches. Ooh, that's so humiliating to me. Around 2 a.m, she asked me, "Tony, I'm completely out of C#. Can you just run right out and get me some?" As if I know every small-time drug dealer in the city, a true jack of all trades. Murray was very fond of her booger sugar, or C#, as she fondly called it. She had very little money to spend on drugs in those days, but her friends and devotees were only too happy to pay for her supply because they knew from experience that the higher Mary got, the happier she was to dog out Diana Ross. It could be a lot of fun. Being somewhat unfamiliar with how to score drugs, somewhat unfamiliar. Catch that, somewhat unfamiliar. I call a friend of mine who travels in those dark circles, and together we drive to a certain street in the city where you can buy whatever you want from the safety of your car, like a drive-in. Nevertheless, I feel like I'm risking my life as I hand over the money and am given a small packet in return. And I'm more than upset when on my return, Mary starts screaming at me that she was ripped off. We argue for half an hour while she snorts every bit of the boogity sugary I brought her. And then she demands that I go back to the same street corner and get some more at a discount. And this time, Mother Mary is going to go with you, she tells me. With Mary all bunched up in the backseat of the Mercedes, sucking on a bottle of cheap champagne, we return to the scene of the crime. The same dude who sold me the booger sugar comes over to the car. Next thing I know, Mary sticking her head out of the car window and asking the guy, "Hey, do you know who I am?" Like she's doing an American Express commercial. "Lady, what the fuck do you want?" The guy's looking at her like she's crazy. "I'm one of the Supremes." Mary tells him, "I'm telling myself we're dead." For some reason, the guy seems interested in Mary's antics. "My mama used to listen to the Supremes when I was a kid," he tells her. "So if what you're saying is true, then I'm willing to let you prove it." At which point, Mary launches into a full rendition of "Stop, think it over." "Mary, think it over, bitch. You letting the world know that your ass is out here on the streets." She sings lead with all the hand movements and everything. Meanwhile, the traffic is backing up behind us. The dealer has invited a bunch of his friends to come over and share the experience, and I'm in complete panic. Tyler House, I love you, okay? But let me tell you something. Let me give you a quick story, 2 minutes, right? So one time, me and one of my Judys was headed in town. Okay, this is when I was living in Montgomery County, right? So me and her together headed in town. And we had to pass by Tyler House. Oof. And if you don't know what the Tyler House is, let me just, what was that place? Equated with the Taj Mahal from Sugar Hill movie, okay? So anyway, no, that wasn't Sugar Hill. What was the name of that movie with Wesley Snipes was in the movie? What was it? Was it Sugar Hill? It's only one lane, okay? It's a lane it's a parking lane next to that one lane, girl. But everybody knows you don't honk because it's like a drive-in for when you want to get your shiz, right? Ooh, Lord. Child, the police be right there. I don't understand it. Girl, one time we was driving by the Tyler House and the person in front of us was, picking up their package or whatever. And my Judy was driving my truck at the time. This bitch started beeping her own. Bah, bah, bah. I'm like, bitch, is you crazy? That's the Tyler House. She was like, I don't care. What are they doing? They're holding up traffic. I said, bitch, they buying drugs. Mary, however, seems completely relaxed. She finishes the song and tells the man, that $100 piece these guys bought from you earlier, it's not big enough. I've been all around the world, and that was the smallest $100 piece I ever saw in my life. I want a discount. Now, see, that makes me feel that not only was she putting it up her nose, but she was hitting the pipe. Because when you say a piece, I'm not thinking of loose powder. I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about a rock. You mean to tell me that Murray Wilson was on crack? What in the crowd around the car is skeptical and getting nasty. She ain't no effing Supreme, says one guy. That bitch is scamming us. What are you? One of the background babes, says another. Are you in drag? She's probably a narc. Sing something, bitch. 2 more guys mock in unison. Time to make a move, I'm thinking. But by now, a Jeep has pulled around the corner and blocked our exit. Mary starts singing reflections of the way life used to be in the back of the Mercedes, and once again demands a discount. To my surprise, they eventually settle on $75 and we split. Honey, Mary tells me in the haughty tone as we head back to her crony's apartment, you got to let them know who you are. Allowances are always made for stars. Asshole, don't you know that by now? I had to laugh remembering this story, and yet it was as sad as it was funny. It was almost as if Berry Gordy and his Motown system had hypnotized these people into a kind of charmed dream world in which they were demigods, immune to any of life's harsher realities, and they had never woken up. My thoughts were interrupted when the phone rang. It was my sister, Ramona. Tony, you want to go to a concert tonight at the Beacon Theater? What's going to be there? The Temptations? Really? Which Temptations? By now, I had learned that the Temptations could mean any likely or unlikely combination of men. Well, it says in the paper, David Ruffin, Eddie Kendricks, and Dennis Edwards, former lead singers of the Temptations. News of both Eddie and David had been pretty thin since their falling out with Hall & Oates. David had returned to the safety of the horse farm to try and pull his life back together. He knew he had blown it big time. He knew he had blown it for Eddie too. Yeah, but drugs make you very selfish. It makes you like I've been enthralled in drugs before. You know what's funny, y'all? Give me 2 minutes. Y'all know I had a propensity to eat a cookie here and there, because I used to have trouble with sleeping, right? And I would eat a cookie before I went to bed to help me sleep. But ever since I've had my puppy, I have been clean and sober. No edibles, no nothing at all. Because I'm scared that I'm going to be off just in case something happened to my baby. I want to be alert. I don't want him to, get into something because I'm groggy from eating a cookie the night before. It's like I just can't allow myself to do it. After the Hall & Oates debacle, David fled back to the safety of a horse farm. His girlfriend, Debbie, and longtime friend named Margaret implored him to seek treatment for his addictions. They were worried about David's health. David always said, I'm not going to die. I know what I'm doing. He thought he was going to live to 90 or 100 like his uncle, but finally he agreed to allow a drug counselor to come to the farm and talk to him. With the counselor came someone from Eddie and David's booking agency who told David that if he didn't get treatment, she would stop getting him work. After talking to the counselor for about 6 hours, David agreed to go into treatment at a private center in New York. David stayed at the clinic for several months, becoming more enthusiastic day by day. David had started to understand addiction as a disease. Neither Eddie nor David had been working much. They must have been living off the money they'd made with hauling oats. As for Dennis, the last time I had seen him was in Austin, Texas, when he had shown up out of the blue in Eddie's hotel room looking well-worn and decidedly out of shape. In the years since that encounter in Texas, Dennis had recorded an unsuccessful solo album for Motown and toured his solo act in some small clubs. Eventually, he had been invited back in through the revolving door of Otis Williams' Temptations after his replacement, Ollie Woodson, was fired for bad-mouthing the Temps behind their backs and showing up late or not at all too many times. What? Like Otis, nigga. You know, what do you think? Oh, they make David Ruffins every day. Oh, they make Eddie Kendricks every day. Or they make Dennis Edwards every day. Is that what you think? So, quick note, right? TT had mentioned that it was said that David Ruffin's voice and Ollie's voice were very similar. I would agree, but TT was like, it's old hollering David Ruffin. It ain't a good David Ruffin, okay? But I don't think he was trying to be a David Ruffin. I think he was trying to be a Ollie. I thought that Ollie did a great job because remember, them ninjas was on pause until Ollie came with I like opening doors, picking up her hanky off the floor. Hey, treat her like a lady. So I don't know what Otis's thing is, you know? And I kind of think that Otis curse them. You know, people want the same. People want to experience that same emotion each time. And when it hits, you hold on to it. Otis, I mean, he knocking me out. And I know some of y'all are like, if it wasn't for Otis, the group wouldn't have lasted so long. Hey, if it wasn't for Otis, they would have had far more hits after the goddamn 80s. Then Dennis was fired again for, no surprise, not showing up. And Ollie was rehired. It was getting to seem like deja vu in that group. Eddie was the only temp who had eagerly left. The others were all thrown out for bad behavior of one sort or another, except Eddie's original replacement, Richard Owens. He simply couldn't cut the mustard and was let go only a couple of months into Otis's 18-month probation period for new personnel. Nigga, is you my employer? Is he the employer? No. I work for the record company, bitch. I don't understand why the record companies or the record labels allowed Otis to do that. Because I'm like, I don't care if you don't like him. He just made us a hit. Lulu, baby, please. Let me finish this. Let mommy finish. This is what the list looked like. 1961, Eldridge Bryant, Eddie Kendricks, Paul Williams, Otis Williams, Melvin Franklin. 1964, David Ruffin, Eddie, Paul, Otis, Melvin. 1968, Dennis Edwards, Eddie, Paul, Otis, Melvin. 1971, Dennis, Richard Owens, Richard Street, Otis, Melvin. 1971, Dennis, Damon Harris, Richard, Otis, Melvin. 1975, Dennis, Glenn Leonard, Richard, Otis, Melvin. 1976, Louis Price, Glenn, Richard, Otis, Melvin. 1979, Dennis, Glenn, Richard, Otis, Melvin. 1982, David, Eddie, Dennis, Glenn, Richard, Otis, Melvin. That's around the reunion time, child. 1983, Ollie Woodson, Ron Tyson, Richard, Otis, Melvin. 1986, Dennis, Ron, Richard, Otis, Melvin. 1989, Ollie, Ron, Richard, Otis Melvin. That made 14 different lineups and 14 different men, all whom could claim to be current or ex-Temptations, with Ollie and Dennis replacing each other every few years, and Otis and Melvin always bringing up the rear. I had no idea what Otis's latest groups of replacements had been up to. I really had no interest in them. They'd become a glittery Vegas-style act that appealed to an older crowd. They still did the classic temp hits, but their dance steps had been toned down to a bare minimum by now because neither Otis nor Melvin were in too good shape, and the replacement voices just didn't have the excitement of the original Temptations. See what I'm saying? I've seen Ollie perform some of David's and Dennis's leads, though I once heard Richard Street claim in an interview that if you closed your eyes and listened, you couldn't tell the difference between Ollie and David Ruffin. Ron Tyson, who sang Eddie's leads, was true to the original, though not a perfect mimic like Eddie's second replacement, Damon Harris. Damon had been thrown out after his once respectful attitude disappeared, and he started giving Otis some lip, as Otis put it. Worse still, something he said pissed Barry off, so Barry told Otis to get rid of him. See, that's the bullshit I'm talking about. Business, 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 business. I don't give a fuck if I don't like you. Let's get to the money. F all that you talking, sock it to a bitch pockets. As yet, I didn't know the story of how Otis's group, the Imitations, as I called them, had threatened to sue Eddie and David for deceptive and misleading advertising over the use of the name Temptations. How it could be deceptive or misleading to call two former Temptations. Few that I spoke with could ever figure out. But of course, it is very Motown to fight over group names or service marks, as it is very Motown to control an artist's career and earning power by controlling his name. Let's face it though, as background singers, Otis and Melvin needed the Temptations name far more than did the lead singers, Eddie, David, or Dennis, all of whom had enjoyed solo careers using their own names. Ooh, catch. Now it could be very confusing to have two groups with the same name going out on tour. But in settling out of court, Otis and Melvin insisted that Eddie and David could not in the future call themselves original lead singers of the Temptations or former Temptations. The most they would finally allow was the billing formally of the Temptations, and that was on condition that, as the legal document declared, the letters in the name Temptations could never be larger than 25% of the size of both the letters used in Eddie and David's individual names, and the letters used in the phrase formerly of. Patty pulling up in the limo at the front door of the Beacon Theater that night in 1989, I immediately caught sight of the name. The Temptations spelled out in huge letters on the marquee and in tiny letters that you could just make out. Former lead singers, Eddie Kendricks, David Ruffin, Dennis Edwards. I jumped out of the limo, told the security man that I worked for Mr. Ruffin, Kendrick, and Edwards, and sailed right into the theater. As I neared the top of the stairs leading to the dressing room, I heard, "Tony, is that you?" "Baby, it's me." "Get the hell on up here," Eddie said. I told them I was busy writing a book about my adventures with the Supremes, at which David jumped in with, "You've got to tell the truth about that bitch, Diana Ross, and all the rest of them. And Murray was trash. And that Burry Gordy, he stole all my mother hunchy mother." That he did, chimed in and always understated Eddie. "And Eddie, tell Tony how Murray chased you all those years." Eddie blushed. "That Diana Ross," David went in. "Did I ever tell you about that time?" not already done so, please remember to like, share the Facebook, subscribe, and visit uptopbeauty.com for this honeybee wig, baby. Now remember this, the same people that you meet on the way up will always be the same people that you meet on the way down. My naysayers, my patron loves you, babies. Y'all have a good one.